But the best bit, we used to have a little a little coffee table in our in our living room, and anytime Mum used to go out, we used to have this little teddy that had a zip up the back that used to unzip, pull it inside out, and zip it back up, and it was like a rugby ball. So here we go, Dad and I playing, Dad on his knees, and against Graham, because he was all.
So John wasn't a referee, and then he was.
No, he was straight in about
2v1.
it. Like,
who was the teams?
It was always me and Dad against Graham.
Keep your elbows close.
Yeah, and then ended up having a one-on-one with Jamie Roberts, and I stepped on him with the right foot, and I was like, oh, now we're playing, and it was the biggest cheer I've ever had. I was like, oh.
Welcome once again to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. A rather special episode, an extremely special episode. Chris Paterson here, and I'm joined by a hero of mine, Scotland British and Irish Lions fullback, a man who's gone on to win his 100th cap this weekend as Scotland take the field against Ireland. We'll look ahead to the game in a bit, but I want to look back before I look forward, Hoggy. First things first, how are you?
I'm grand.
It's a big week.
It's a big week, but I don't know quite what to make of it yet. I think for me, I'm just kind of focusing on doing my job for the team and making sure that we're successful in all the times of trying. 12 attempts in the Six Nations. We've got a Triple Crown to play for this weekend, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it. And to be in a position to hit 100 caps is pretty special. But I think I'll only really understand what it means and what it feels when I'm in the moment.
Do you think you even will, though? Because your focus is absolutely totally on that Irish game.
You tell me.
Well,
how was it? Wasn't it?
I ended up in.
I did. I know what to do that.
In Cardiff. If you want to keep it.
How did you feel leading up to it in the week? Did you see it as a normal game, or did you see it as a little bit added spice?
No, I was a goal setter in my career.
Yeah.
I think you are too. I wanted to become most cap for Scotland, and then once I was lucky enough to achieve that, I wanted to win 100 caps for Scotland, and then it became probably too all-encompassing. Through the high 80s, 90s caps, I thought this magical thing's going to happen, and then I might ask you about this as well. But on the Monday before the team announcement, so it was I played in Cardiff on the Saturday and the Monday. It was Andy Robinson was head coach, and he's just going to have a 1-to-1. This was on the Monday night. After dinner, I thought, oh, come on, Andy, we're not going here. And he looked at
on the 99.
No, come on, 99. And he said, I just need to know, are you ready for this? And I looked back and said, you having a laugh, Andy? I said, what? He said, it'll be a physical challenge away in Cardiff. Are you ready? And at that point, I thought, I just kind of, me, I was rather firm with my reply and said, of course I'm ready. Got up and walked away. And it was really good because that moment, and it was maybe deliberate with Andy, but it took all the personal stuff out of it. It says, no, I'm ready and I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
So it then became about the game. And the one thing where I allowed myself to get personal about it was the players all wrote anonymously just a line about me, and got a big envelope at the night before the dinner, the night before, and I was given an envelope with 30 pieces of anonymous scribble, some handwriting better than others, and it was really nice to know what your teammates felt. And other than that moment on the Monday and that moment on the Friday, it was getting to the game. I just wanted the game to go, so I got away from it.
I think it was
you much the same.
It was similar today, to be honest. I was a bit nervous about it. The same.
You're nervous about being picked?
My thing is, it's the same every time. I meant for a while, I felt I could do no wrong, and I was confident in my ability to play. And over the last kind of couple of years, it's been a lot more challenging, but in a good way. It's kept me on my toes. It kept me working really hard. With Blair, quick on my heels, and Ollie Smith coming through as well. Two quality players that have almost gave me a kick up the backside, saying Luke, you need to be a bit better as well. So I don't quite relax until the team's announced, and we do the occasional walkthrough the day before, and you're like, right, kind of following guys, put bibs on, but don't read into it.
Yeah.
And all the time I've known Gregor, don't read into it, but read into it. But until it's on the board, it's still a bit here, I'm scared. But again today when it was announced,
there's a wee skip and heartbeat, eh?
There was, and then I was told afterwards I was vice captain, but I wasn't aware of that. I was like, oh, here we go. But no, it was class because Gregor was kind enough to put on a video montage of what I used to be like, career highlights, and the first thing I was thinking in my head was, bloody hell, I used to be quite good. And but now after that video was gone, everybody comes up and shakes your hands and congratulates you, and it is very, very special. But I think the best thing was we came back across the road, had our dinner, and then had to concentrate on training in the afternoon. So for all it is a nice moment, I think as the week goes on, I just got to keep my sole focus on doing my job, and that's to help Scotland win a test match.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into that test match later on. It's brilliant to hear that, and I know I believe every word it, and having experienced something similar, I know exactly what you want. You just want it to come, you want the game to get going. This isn't a This Is Your Life, by the way. There's no red book coming in the corner, because there's more to come, Hogg.
Yeah.
Especially starting this weekend and then thereafter. But we do want to look back to where it all began and maybe chronologically go through bits and pieces of your career. So how did you get into rugby? You're a rugby family, a rugby area, but what was it that got you into the game?
I think if I'm truly honest, it was more of watching the Six Nations in Scotland when they played, but the proper time that I would say I wanted to be a rugby player was when I started following my brother Graham, who's 5 years older than I am, and he used to play in all the age grade district stuff, playing for the Borders, and then going up to play for Scotland and getting into the National Academy and stuff. And I was like, do you know what, that looks class? And I was like, I want to be involved. And we'd all played for like Hoyk Albion, and then you want to try and get into I think it was the Raiders, and then the Stormers, and then the Borders pathways, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. And following my brother, I got to experience everything way before my time, and to see what he had gone through and the sacrifices that he was having to make and the enjoyment he was getting out of it, then the opportunity on the back of it, I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. And it was only really then that I was like, right, I'm going to start taking this a little bit more serious. And I absolutely loved it. I remember, it's weird because you go to all the kind of Scottish rugby camps as a kid, and you go up to Struan and you camping in a tent and washing in the river and playing on a cabbage patch. Like, they were the days, like that was the fun times. You get to experience loads of different things, but you were playing like the best in Scotland, and you wanted to be the best at that age, and that was 14, 15, 16. And that's really when I was like, right, I want to be a rugby player.
There's a lot in there, isn't there? It's like, it's really nice to see, like, you family have had a massive influence on you. Talk a wee bit about them. Graham, your brother, was at Edinburgh when I was still playing, as well, and your dad, John, refereed me more often than not.
Yeah, I think the only challenging part was really early on, and only now, the older you get and you start to process life. The toughest thing for us as a family was the fact that my brother got punted out the academy, and I came straight in that summer, which was a bit bittersweet.
And it was a national academy then.
It was,
Edinburgh and Glasgow.
No,
it wasn't. So it was effectively like for like.
It was, and that was the only realise when you get older the kind of challenging times that he must have gone through.
Have you asked him how he felt about that?
We've had numerous conversations about it, and he's like, again,
he'd be proud of you though, was he?
100%. He's always said that he's never jealous, but he's always envious, but he's my number one supporter. Like, he's probably the first person, whoever answers the phone between him and Dad first about who I go for advice. But the best thing about them, the pair of them, is they'll no miss and hit the wall. They'll tell you exactly how it is, and that's what you want. But yes, I've almost like felt not a pressure, but
you're representing the
family.
I'm
almost like trying to make my family proud, but also allow Graham to come and see, what could have been type thing. I know that sounds horrible, but I feel the pressure to perform for us both, and it was weird. But as I say, like at the time, I was just thinking, nah, stuff you route, I'm in. Like that's all it was. But when you start to understand things and you process it and you experience why you have little bits of challenges in your life and your career, these are things that at the time you didn't process. So I have found it a bit challenging that he's been on the sidelines for as long watching, but he'll be the first to say that he's got my back no matter what.
And that competitive edge is obvious in the way you've played, the way you've conducted yourself every day in training. Was that evident when you were young as well with your brother and your dad? Was there, or your big brother, sorry? Was there?
Yeah.
Is that where the competitive edge comes from?
It was, yeah, because as I say, Graham's 5 years older and he was always a lot bigger than I was. Used to batter me, used to beat me to the dining table. But the best bit, we used to have a little a little coffee table in our in our living room. And anytime Mum used to go out, we used to have this little teddy that had a zip up the back that used to unzip, pull it inside out and zip it back up, and it was like a rugby ball. So here we go, Dad and I playing, Dad on his knees, and against Graham, because he was
So John wasn't a referee, and then he was
no,
involved?
he was straight in about it.
2v1, who was the teams?
It was always me and Dad against Graham when we got to the age that Graham could be on his own. And we used to hear the car, we had the Stony Drive, and used to hear Mum come in and the car door shut, and we were like, right, everybody get back in the seats, put the coffee table back. And then we're all sitting kind of panting away, and Mum's like, I know you boys have been at it again. We're like, no, you're wrong. Well, look at the carpet, you've got lines everywhere, here, there and everywhere, fast rolling about. But
as long as there's no blood.
There's always a competitive edge, and there always will be, no matter what we're doing. If it's playing golf, if it's anything, even like watching horse racing, there's competitive edge. And we're like, well, we're not in control of anything, but we've still got the bragging rights, whoever wins. So I think that's where that's where I get it from.
On that as well, like, your first passion was to be a jockey, though, wasn't it? Was it before rugby?
It was. I say that because it's almost like my intention was never, if I'm honest, my intention was never to be a rugby player, like fully committed until I got to a certain age. And my first ever job, I worked for my dad in the mill, and thankfully he was my boss at the time, so it was a 7-week holiday when we were off school. But for one of the weeks I jumped out and went to Stuart Rugby camp. Still got paid for it, but I think they'll be at me now to get it back. But and I remember riding out for Donald Wellens at the bottom of the town, and it was class every weekend. We'd ride out the horses, muck out, learn what it was and life outside of school and in the real world, and I absolutely loved it. And I remember writing in my yearbook that I was going to be a jockey, but there was a severe lack of riding ability, and I was too heavy by the time I got to 17. So I say it for a bit of crack, but now it's kind of grown arms and legs. I think it's now in my Wikipedia bio and everything. So look, I love my horses. I got 3 of my own, and my wife loves them as well. So it's always a good thing, because horses don't talk back to you.
Well, I'm pleased you grew out the horses and took up the rugby. But this was on Hoyk, obviously. We'll skip on pretty quickly. But just Hoyk, it's obviously hometown. It means a lot to you. The rugby club in Hoyk means an awful lot to you. There's a big event this weekend as well. And
I know.
The tennis premiership final is at Hoyk, and the first final.
I was asking the powers that be if they could put it back a couple of weeks.
Is it going back to your competitive edge with your family, because your brother's coaching at Hoyk, isn't he? And your dad's director. What's the biggest event in the Hogg household this weekend, Saturday or Sunday then?
I think
you'll pip it.
Yeah, but we used to say that we always take it a day by day. So Saturday comes before Sunday. So unfortunately, I think their sole focus is on Saturday, and rightly so. They've done a cracking job so far this season, and you know the players are buzzing, the whole town's buzzing. I was down last weekend for the semi-final and absolutely loved it. And yeah, hopefully they can do the exact same this weekend, because, as I say, the whole place is buzzing and right behind it. And for years on end, we were never in a position to win trophies, and for Hoyt to do that now is pretty special. So, best wishes to them for the weekend.
It's good to hear yourself say we as well. Have you got Hoyk heroes? When you grew up, you'd have watched them. That would be There's I mean, Hoyk's as steep in rugby history as you can get. Have you got Hoyk heroes?
Yeah, I have. Nicky Walker. And the reason I've Numpty is because when I was in primary 5, I think it was, Numpty made his debut. Scotland jersey with a navy and light blue stripes. I remember writing, it was almost like a newspaper article
on Nicky's performance.
Aye, but I remember, like, back in the day, like, any time it had, it would always start, the press article would always start, Hoyk's Nicky Walker or something, like, you know what I mean? Hoyk. So I was like, right, Hoyk's Nicky Walker takes. I think it was like Nicky takes the field was like was the headline in that. And so I loved it because it was the first person when I was at Murrayfield. I was like, that's a Hoyk person, and I was like, I watched him last week. I was ball boy for him last year. Like that was like amazing, because I watched him play for Hoyk, and then I've seen him in the club rooms, and then I've seen him playing on the big international stage. I was like, that's bloody special.
Makes it real, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. And I remember that because we had my school teacher at the time was big into Hoyk rugby, Kath Douglas, and she managed somehow to get my newspaper article into the Hoyk programme, and it was there that weekend. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm running around on the touchline as a ball boy and reading the programme. My little article was in it. I felt like King Kong, but geez, that was a long old time ago now.
No, but it means a lot. And I played with Nicky for a long time. you'd be probably too young to remember Hogg winning the first Scottish Cup final. Do you remember that now?
My brother was ball boy that year,
Was he
2002. Or are you on about 96?
Oh,
2002?
96,
96, no, I can't remember that. But 2002 I was there because I think the YM played it the same day.
There's a lot of Hogg. There's a lot of...
Oh, hey.
There's a Gallagher will move on quickly.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Didn't play a huge amount senior rugby for Hogg. Involved with, actually before the Scottish Rugby Academy, the base rugby academy. That was the first time I remember meeting you.
Yeah.
Spoken about this once or twice. Coming down to run a session. I was still playing internationally at Earlston. And Richie Gray was Gala Richie Gray.
Yeah.
Was the lead rugby.
He was in charge of it. He was the one that designed it all.
Session. He says, and keep your eye on this, and that's Hoggy. And you run round me about 3 or 4 times to get me touch. I've never.
Aye, but we've all done appearances, Moss, and you have to make the kids feel.
No,
better,
I was trying though.
No, yeah.
I was.
I was getting the drag back with the hair at the time as well. I think it was down to my backside.
What
back
age
then.
would you be then?
I was 16.
16,
yeah.
So you knew you wanted to be involved in rugby at that age?
That was the first time I was you almost felt like you're a full-time rugby player because you're going in every morning, lifting weights, training, doing all these kind of sessions. We had a few, like heroes come down and watch us and train, and we travelled all around the borders doing it. But then in the afternoon, you were doing the academic side of things, and that was the bit you were playing rugby, but then you had to realise you still got to do other things off the field, and it was the morning side of things that I was more interested in. Yeah,
the rugby element.
And
that transferred into Scottish Rugby Academy then, didn't it? Immediately at the back of that?
Yeah, so Bomber Hislop and I went up from base academy to the National Academy based at Murrayfield, and that first year was a tricky one because I had Osgood Slatter's disease in my knee, so I couldn't do anything. I remember
you can't even
no
rest. That's all the thing.
Yeah, it was literally 6 months you're doing upper body weights. You can't do anything. I was like, well, I'm really sure this is for me. But at the time, it was 6 months of not training at the club. But I'm still going back to hike and run around with the youth side. I think that's why I ended up out the pitch as long, and that's why my knees are buggered now.
Just to love the rugby though, you wanted to play.
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I used to play in the Border 7 circuit on a Saturday and a Sunday. Now I kind of train 2 days in a row, but I absolutely loved it. But
it was you've spoken a lot and kept in touch with coaches at Hogg, coaches around your college course, but Scottish Rugby Academy like Brian Easton, Rocky Johnson, these guys, you've kept a link no matter and all the things you've achieved. You've always had that link right back to where it started.
I think it was really quite special for a few years ago because we ended up doing a coaching chain, and I was like asked like who are my coaches growing up, and I said like Rocky Johnson, Mark Wright, my primary school coaches, and I completely forgot about Jerry McGuinness. And Jerry McGuinness, along with Bernie, were probably the most important coach I ever had.
Why?
Because he dragged me, well not kind of dragged me, but yeah, he pretty much did. He dragged me from the Hoyt PSA to the Hoyt Wands, and I loved playing for the Wands. We ended up, we won numerous trophies, and I remember at the time I was like, I think this is just I didn't really understand what this coaching chain was going to turn into. Then the next thing, I'm at this dinner with all these coaches round the table, and I was like, Jeezy Peeps. I was like, Jeezy Peeps, where's Jerry? I've completely forgot about him. And I was like, bugger, like, he was like one of the most important. But I remember Brian Easton, for me, like, we're talking the best part of 15 years, 15, 16 years that Barney's been a coach and been an influence in my life. He'll be, from a rugby point of view, outside my family, be the first person that I pick up the phone to and speak to. And he always gives me good advice. But I chat to him more about life than I do about rugby. And that's something that's really quite special because he taught me way back in the day to pass off my left hand, which everybody looks now and goes, well, did it work? Well, it did back then. It just doesn't seem to happen now. But like little things like that, we always have a laugh about. But I met him, a couple of Christmases ago with my wife and his, and shared a few glasses of red wine, and absolutely loved being in his company. And this is when you understand that rugby's so unique, that you keep in touch with these coaches that are more than coaches. They're like your rugby dad, and it is really quite special for me.
And most people think you rely on these people or these relationships you have when something goes wrong or there's a really hard time, but it's not. It's all the time, isn't it?
All the time. I think you appreciate and understand them all the time, but probably a little bit more so when times are tough, because they'll tell you the exact. If you listen closely and you understand what they're saying, they'll tell you the exact same things as what they're saying when things are going well. But you kind of brush by it, if that makes sense. So everybody's gone through tough times, but I think the tough times build character and build you to be better. And I'm grateful for the tough times that I've had in my life, because it's given me a kick up the backside and made me, freshen up ideas, or understand that it's not as bad as what my first intention was. But these are the kind of guys that mean the most to you.
Now, we'll touch on some of those actually as we go on. We'll skip on through the academy, and you become a professional player for Glasgow. That happened pretty quickly, didn't it? And it happened before you had, I always thought, a huge amount of senior rugby experience.
Yeah.
Like you knew the game, we'll touch on that as well, but not a huge amount of senior rugby experience. So rather than learning the game at a senior level in the club game, you're learning it professionally and internationally 2 or 3 months after that. How prepared did you feel, or how easy or hard did professional rugby come to you once you got out in the field?
It was very much sink or swim, because you've gone from doing...
Do you quite like that though?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you either got it or you've not. Like the amount, like I remember in that year at the academy, you'd go out and you had 6 or 7 boys trying to catch 4 tennis balls at the same time, as well as catching a high ball. It was never going to work. But the year after, you were sent to Edinburgh or Glasgow, or you were sent out the door. And I was lucky. I got an opportunity to go to Glasgow, but growing up in the Borders, I was Border Reivers. It's all I wanted to play for. And then when they went bust, I was like, well, the closest team's Edinburgh. I want to play for Edinburgh. And then I was sent to Glasgow, which I felt was a million miles away from home. I didn't think I'd ever been to Glasgow other than...
Stop it.
I was like, how far away is this place? Wettest place in the world. But I lasted a week and a half, and I said to my dad, Dad, no, this isn't for me. I was like, no, this isn't for me.
Were you staying in Glasgow at that point?
Aye.
With who?
I was on my own the first season. I was on my own the first season, which I felt was quite difficult, because when I was in Edinburgh, I had Rory Hutton, Nicky Little, my brother, like white boys, comfy. Nobody else came anywhere near our flat. We used to just hang about the 4 of us, and that was me happy. And then when I moved to Glasgow, I went from knowing everybody to not knowing anybody and living on my own.
Another sink or swim moment, eh?
Well, that's the thing, and I look back at it and go, well, I could have quite easily jacked it in and gone back to riding out horses, but my dad said, you've got a bloody big opportunity here, like don't let it slip. And then I stuck at it, and then got more and more into the season, because pre-season, I'd never done a full pre-season before. And I was like, well, where's the fun part? Where's the rugby? Where do we actually get to play? And I was lifting weights and running broncos and yo-yos, and I was like, I don't want this. But as soon as the games came along, and you get the buzz of the game day, and at that time I actually went back to play for Hoyk. My first season at Glasgow, I went back to play for Hoyk, and I absolutely loved it, because I'd go up, I'd train Monday, Tuesday with the Glasgow, drive back down to Hoyk, train with Hoyk on a Thursday, and then, depending on if Glasgow were home and away, I used to go to the game at Fairhill. And in that season, I popped my shoulder, done my ankle, and then came back fit for the under-20s. And during the under-20s, I played the first 2 games, and they pulled me away. I said I was going to be playing for Glasgow. So I got 2 games that season, and I absolutely loved it. I was like, I'm playing in professional rugby here. This is quality. And then the following season was the time that all you boys went to the World Cup, and we got good opportunities to play.
You never looked back for that point, eh? 2011 that was.
Yeah.
And that would be... Because you played quite a lot. You pretty much played every game, didn't you, for the first part of that season?
I was lucky. Because at that summer, I'd come off the back of... This sounds horrendous, but I come off the back of the 2-match ban at Under-20s World Cup.
I remember this.
My parents went out for 2 games, and it was the 2 games I was banned for.
What was the offence again?
I can't remember. Something to do with a tackle, I think, late. Or it might have been early, I can't remember.
Wrongly timed.
I think it was that late, it was early. But then I came back that summer, and Bernardo Stertoni, who I absolutely loved at Glasgow, he had retired. So I was then up to, at the time, second choice behind Pete Murchie. And unfortunately for Murch, he popped his shoulder in the first pre-season game against Newcastle. And I had a contract that year that if I had played 6 professional games before Christmas, I was given a full-time deal. And at that time, Sean Lanine said, I'm going to put you at fullback because I almost want you to serve your apprenticeship at fullback, and then we'll chuck you back to 13, which I actually signed at Glasgow as. And then ended up playing a few games. Murchie came back for the 6th game, and I was like, if he comes back on this, I'm not going to get my contract. And unluckily for him, somebody wiped him in the the warm up of the team run day, a bad shoulder, and he was out
you,
for
was
it again.
It wasn't you, was it?
Well, I've never been very, very hard on the tackle pads, but I don't think it was me. But again, like you have to have a little bit of luck along the way, because after that I played really quite well.
What was the game you scored a hat-trick in Munster? Was that
Munster away? Yeah.
Was that in that period?
I believe so. I think it was anyway. Either that, or it was just after I think it was just after the Six Nations actually. But I played all that season and that, like, leading up to when everybody came back from the World Cup, and I thought, well, I've had my time.
Mm-hmm.
That could be me out.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're playing with the likes of Graham Morrison was coming back, John Barclay was coming back, Cuss was coming back. I was in awe of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember Cuss sitting on the physio bed one day, and I was like, that's Chris Cuss. I couldn't believe it. And then I'm lying on the physio bed, and John Barclay comes up and introduces himself to me. I'm like, I know exactly who you are. Like, you're John Barclay. And these were the things I remember. I was like, this was absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. And then I get an opportunity to play alongside him, and I was like, I love rugby. I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure I'm here forever. And that little bit of opportunity that you get, that little taste of success we had, because we actually went all right during that period. I was like, I love this.
But then it wasn't that long after first cap for Scotland. It was 2012, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Opening game of the Six Nations, Wales away, starting the bench, only game.
Yeah.
What was 98 starters?
Again, another bit of luck. You decided to hang up the boots.
I was
after
getting
that
well
World
out the
Cup.
way when I saw you coming through.
That was my one thing. I was like, I wanted Bossy just to come in for one camp so I could.
We played against each other though.
Oh, we played against each other. I remember I had a one-on-one with you. I went round outside of DeLuca and I ended up with a one-on-one with you, and I was like, nah, it's Chris Paterson. I said, you've got the biggest dead ball at Murrayfield behind it, and I was like, if I kick it over here, I might do it. And by the time I decided, I was belted into the front row of the stand.
You must have made it easy for me. Took pity on me.
And then I tackled you, and believe it or not, I tackled you into touch, and I picked you up. I was like,
Bossy,
come on. I was like, Bossy, come on, get back up, you're fine. But
and I remember that. But yeah, I was I had retired international by then.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was well at the picture before you came in.
I remember
made me look so
getting
silly.
a photo of a phone call of Andy Robinson, and I was living with three boys in the Glasgow flat, and I genuinely thought it was a piss take at first. He phoned me up and said, Hoggy, I'd love you to be involved. This is Andy Robinson here. I went, get on. And I hung up. And then
never hung up.
I did. But then I was like, 2 minutes later, he phoned me back. He said, Stuart, it's actually
really
Andy Robinson here. Because I'm going around the boys going, right, which one of you is playing funny buggers here? And then, ended up going into the Six Nations camp, and I was like, right, you've got absolute Scottish legends of the day here, and I'm like, what's this little Hogg Yeti up to here? Like, but
some impact off the bench though.
I think the week before was probably more like really, really enjoyable as well when we played the Saxons.
Oh yeah, that was
because you like the Scotland boys played on the Saturday, but we played the Friday night.
Yeah.
Down at Netherdale.
You scored a world in that game.
Aye, and I was like, well, I remember the following week, I was like, I was involved in, like, before the team was announced, I was involved in like the bits of walkthroughs and that, and I was like, well, I think there's a wee chance. There's a wee chance here. And then Robbo on the Tuesday flips over the bit of paper, and I saw my name on the bench, number 22. I was like, oh, geez, peeps, well, what's going on here? But no, it was class. And yeah, I remember in the build up to it, like, just seeing it as a normal game. I hadn't had a huge amount of experience playing rugby, so I was like, well, at that time you're young and naive, and you've not really got a care in the world, so you're just like, right, I'll crack on and see what's what. But I remember Big Al Kellogg stood next to Duncan and I in the anthem, and he said, when we go back to the bench, just try and keep yourself in the game, and it's like, you know, whatever Rory Lamont's doing at the time, what do you think you did on type of thing. And like, Big Al was like the rugby dad, along with Sean Lamont. I was like, right, this is pretty cool. And before I could think of what I was doing, I'm jogging onto the pitch, 15 minutes in, you know, Maxie picked up an injury, and
but instinct kicks in as well, eh? Like, I remember you coming on, and you should have had a try.
I did, I scored.
To be a knock-on, wasn't it?
Aye,
but it wasn't.
Roman Platt, I think he still apologises to
this
day.
Has he actually apologised?
Yeah, when he got his last cap against Australia, last refereeing game against Australia a few years ago, we presented with him something after the game, and he apologised then. I was like, mate, it's best part of 9 years later, what's going on here?
Good on him. Because it was a pass he picked off your bootlaces.
Funnily enough, I've been known to drop one since then, but I never dropped that one. I never dropped that one.
But yeah, and it would have well, it did lead in the try, but then he came back and said it was a knock on. But
Yeah.
would that be the
TMO.
moment? He didn't go to the TMO.
No, he didn't. No.
Would that be the moment? Say first cap, like really quickly pick out one moment immediately, or a feeling that springs for the first cap. Would that be it, or would you just be getting onto the field?
I think the best bit about that game was when I got my first opportunity with ball in hand, and it was Reece Priestland kicked a big crossfield kick, and I was like, first of all, I'm like, catch a bloody thing.
Keep it keep your elbows close.
Yeah, and then ended up having a one-on-one with Jamie Roberts, and I stepped on him with the right foot, and I was like, oh, now we're playing, and it was the biggest cheer I've ever had. I was like, oh, this is fun. And then about 10 seconds later, I run into touch, and Robbo wasn't the best pleased with that. But it was quality.
It's amazing how like single moments just stick in your mind, from such a big occasion.
It's weird because you can ask me about what happened in the very beginning of my career and what happens now, but the middle, I'm like, what did happen?
Well, the week after, he did score a try.
Yeah,
against France, wasn't it? And that was the first cap was the only time you've ever been a replacement. So you've had to put 99 caps, 98 starts. Mm-hmm. This weekend, the 100th will be a 99th start. Was that like confirmation that I remember? Because this sounds terrible, but it can be reasonably simple to play well on a debut or off the bench.
Yeah,
not simple, but it's like it's just everything comes together for you.
I think it's because you're not expected to do anything.
But the week later, when there's a bit of heat on you.
Yeah,
when you play a performance like that, was pretty special.
Yeah, well, I started getting more roles within the team. I had a kicking role on exits, and a couple of set piece plays were based around me getting ball in hand and running. So I was like, right, now we're into it. And yeah, Grieg, it was a bouncing ball. Grieg picks up, goes back to the right, passes to Lee Jones, and then I'm diving into the bottom corner. And still to this day, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my celebration, but. It was quality to play at BT Murrayfield, where I'd watched rugby for a long time.
When was your first trip to Murrayfield, BT Murrayfield?
Oh, jeez.
I've been.
I remember going with my mum and my brother. I think my dad was away refereeing at the time, and when we played against Wales and John Leslie scored the quickest try.
Yeah, 99.
I think we were just getting to our seat and sat down with a burger and chips, and then. Everybody stood up in front of us, and I was like, what's happened, Mum? And she went, well, somebody scored. I went, we've just bloody kicked off.
Kick off. GL.
But there's many a time. One of my favourite memories as a kid going to Murrayfield was, it'd be 2003, Six Nations, I think. It would be a Six Nations. Scotland played Ireland, and at half time, we were on playing tag rugby against Howden Burn or Howden Bank for Jethet.
Oh, nice.
I remember that was class.
So the first time on the field?
That was the first time on the pitch, but we had the green bibs on because we were both playing in sky blue, so we had the green bibs, so we had all the Irish fans supporting us. But
oh well, I'll be
bleached blonde hair back then and almost.
No.
Oh, it was I remember.
What age in the minis? So what are you, like 9, 10 year old?
I'd be 10 or 11. This is.
And the hair was blonde. Like,
artificially
blonde or?
It wasn't like anything now. Must say it wasn't a natural. But. I remember dying it, and then we had a meeting at the school going, no, we don't want any. I had a hat on at the time. Don't want any fancy hairstyles, this, that, and other for our trip to Murrayfield. And I think one of my mates hoid my hat off, and the teacher went, well,
too late now.
I went, sorry, Mrs. Douglas, I'm too late.
But listen, we could talk for ages, and we will touch on different bits and pieces. You could almost speak for loads of different parts of your career, but. You mentioned something before about difficult times and frustrations in your career, how they've made you better and how you've almost come to appreciate them. What are the frustrations that you can hint at there? Obviously, there was an amazing spell at Glasgow, won the Pro 12, but prior to that, the season before, you didn't play in the final for the Pro 12.
No.
There's some difficulties around that. Red card in Wales. These difficult moments to manage. You've spoken openly about how much you've helped, but what are the kind of frustrations in that period that you'd?
The frustrations then were the first campaign in Scotland. We went 0 from 5, which was horrendous. But it was only I played 4 of the 5 games, and I was 19-year-old. I didn't know what it was. The year after, we won 2 games and we finished 3rd. And then we had some decent performances along the way. And then 2014, we went, I think it was one from 5. That was the year Dunkey got the drop goal.
In Italy away, yeah.
And then the last game we played against Wales, and I think I just let all the frustrations out in the wrong way. And
on that red card game?
On the red card, yeah. But I look at that going, built up frustrations, taking it out in the wrong way. And to put it bluntly, I thought I was way better than what I actually was. Because I hadn't had a setback.
You were aligned by then as well.
Yeah, I hadn't had a setback.
Aye.
I hadn't had a setback. I thought, this is plain sailing, this is easy. And we should be winning games. We should be better than what we are. And then...
So what changed it?
The best thing, looking back, at the time it was absolutely dreadful. I thought, I'm out. Like, Glasgow didn't pick me because I decided to try and leave. I was like, yeah. I was way too big for my boots. It's horrible, but it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because you make these mistakes. You're sitting watching the boys playing semi-finals, getting to the... Because we've been in 2 semi-finals a year before.
Right. Doing it Ospreys, wasn't it?
And
this final was in Leinster.
Yeah, and I was like, I want to play. And I remember that week I wasn't expecting to play, but I played... It sounds horrible, but I played against Treviso and Zebra. And back then it was a guaranteed 5 points. And I hadn't played for weeks, and I played against them too, and I was like, do you know what, the big games are coming around the corner, I'm not going to be playing. I remember the worst thing I've ever done was you opened your tray at the club, and it had your number written down for what jersey you're going to be wearing for the final, and mine said that wasn't involved, and I was like, this is absolutely horrendous. I was like, at the time I was like, get me out of here. I said, I need to be playing rugby, I need to be, like, I thought I was way better than what I actually was. And then that summer it all went to pot about leaving, and ended up staying at Glasgow. And then I thought, right, I've got 1 more year in my contract. I could brave it out and not play any rugby and just waste a year and think it'll all kick off again. Or I can suck it up and get on with it and learn from it and understand it. And Gregor put me in touch with the late Steve Black.
Yeah, Blackie, yeah.
And I worked with him for years, and it was absolutely tremendous. And in that season I got a proper feel for what it meant to be a rugby player and being in a successful team, because we went on to win the league that year. And I remember the whole season we were like, we want to be the first Scottish team to win a title. And then I was like, I'm going to be a part of this. I remember being in Belfast when we beat Munster. I was on my hands and knees, like in tears, and Gregor went, you were the difference. He said, what a year you've had. And I went, well, that's what I want to do. But I loved being at Glasgow at that time. I genuinely loved it. I had like almost like the 4-year blip. And I look back on it, and it was horrendous at the time, absolutely horrendous at the time, but as I say, there's always a making of the man, and I truly believe that was it.
See, when you're feeling as low as that and it's horrendous and you're going through tough times, at what point do you realise, actually, that was good for me? Was it the winning of the championship the next again year, or was it during the process of winning? Like,
I think it was working with Steve, because I was learning a lot about myself as a person, and the best person brings out the best rugby player. And I was just understanding what an opportunity I had, what position I was in. And I'd had a few games. I think I was, sitting on 20 caps at the time, so I'd had a fair bit of
and the line.
Yeah, and I've been, and I was like, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. I want to be involved in these big games. And I think the emotion that I showed after that game in Belfast when we won was the fact that this is what I'd worked so hard for the entire season, was to get back to this moment. And I think the emotion that I showed then, and then to go into the World Cup that year, was like, this is what it's about. And I never ever want to be in that position again. And
you'll use those emotions again since then. It's not as if you have one bad time and then everything. It's just like peaks and troughs as a pro player, an international player, isn't it?
The next time I properly struggled would be in 2017 when I banged my eye socket.
Yeah.
I maintained a shoulder.
I've done that, I know.
I maintained a shoulder niggle for the best part of 6-7 months, because
that was in the Lions tour, wasn't it?
Yeah, leading up to that, I was like, I'm going on this tour. I want this tour so badly. And I came off the back of back-to-back Six Nations Player of the Year, and I said, this is my time. I said, they were like, we need your shoulder needs done. I said, strap it up. I said, strap it up, give me some pills, I'll play on. I said, if I don't make it, I'll get it done then. And that season, unfortunately, we ended up, I think we qualified with Glasgow for the first time since I joined the club about playing that, but going on that Lions tour and then thinking, right, this is my time.
Did you feel like on fire, like in terms of your form?
I was like, I was like, this is the best rugby I've played.
Aye.
And I was like, this is my time. And then, you pick up an injury like that ruins someone. It wasn't just right, go home and get your shoulder sorted and get back on with it. I was proper down for the best part of 2 years about it.
2 years?
Yeah. 18 months to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you look at things that have affected you in life and rugby, and you process it and you understand what it is that you've been holding in, I don't think I had a grieving process about that. I generally don't, because I had a few drinks and I'd almost brush it under the carpet and think it was all right, but for the best part of 2 years I kept trying really hard to get back fit, picking up another injury, I think after that shoulder reconstruction, I popped my other shoulder, ripped my gut muscle, done my knee, done my ankle, and you're starting getting pelters going, he's never going to be back to where he was. And that frustrated me, and I was like, I'm having this. I'm going to show people wrong. But in reality, all I was doing was making double the mistakes, making myself look an even bigger clown. There's only one person I had to prove to, and that was me. And it took me, honestly, it took me the best part of 2 years to get over it. And I was like, do you know what? Repeat process of what I'd gone through years earlier. Yep. Do I just try again, or do I understand it and be better for it? And I was like, right, what's my short-term, long-term goals again? I said, let's make the next two.
And did the move to Exeter just after that probably help in terms of
perfect timing?
New challenge? Perfect
timing. I think you come off the back of that World Cup and things didn't go to plan. I think that was a perfect time, because if I'd gone back into an environment that I'd already known, I think I could have become a little bit stale, whereas I wanted a fresh challenge. Going to a
That's
club.
a mature decision as well, though, isn't it? Like it's quite.
Yeah.
It would have been quite easy to stay.
It'd have been easy to stay because I was probably in a comfortable area. I was in a comfort zone that I knew if I was fit and ready to play, I'd play. But I wanted a fresh challenge, and going down to Exeter was absolutely brilliant in the beginning, because it allowed me to have a complete fresh start after the World Cup, and thinking internationally it's always another cycle into the World Cup, where it's almost like a fresh start in my rugby career. And I look back at going to Exeter as probably the best thing that ever happened for me.
And just quickly on that as well, I don't believe you've ever really, well, you have had to learn the game, but as a professional, I don't think you've had to learn the game, because your understanding, your knowledge, your base through, Hogg and playing rugby, you've known the game. You can add power and speed and strength and technical skill, but you've always had that nous. And even if the game changes, have you ever been challenged with the game changing, or is it just?
There's
I think you understand the game really well. I think
yeah, I think a few years ago I would sit and watch every single game of rugby that was on. I would, honestly, and Jill hated it.
All around the world.
All around the world. And I was like, right, I want to try and pick out bits of his game, and I was concentrating too much on other people, and I was like, right, what can I bring to the game? And it started to be like, right, what influence can I have in counter-attack, my kicking game, all that kind of thing. So I've always been a student of the game, and that's why I think that you can never take that for granted. I never believe that you're a complete rugby player. So until the day that I stop, I'll still be working on my basic skills. I'll still be looking at analysis on ways to work to get into a game, to be better, to help. The older you get and the speed's not quite there as what it used to be, you start like, how can I bring other people into the game? And these are all the different bits and pieces that you're constantly learning. Yes, I can improve, but how can I make space for somebody else? And that's where I'm very lucky that you have yourself come into camp, Gregor, whose attention to detail is absolutely tremendous, and learning off all these different coaches. You're like, well, we've got every opportunity to be successful, and let's make the most of it.
You've got a bit of natural ability in there as well. Okay. Well, listen, we have to look ahead to. There's a couple of things I want to ask, but the game at the weekend. Well, before that, you mentioned some of the tough times and frustrations, but is it even more important that when you do succeed, when you do have moments of elation, you celebrate it and you get a pat on the back and you get the people close to you and you celebrate together? For all the soul-searching moments, how important is it to celebrate the good bits?
You've got to celebrate. You've got to celebrate all the little victories you get within a game.
And does that still drive you? Like
100%.
That feeling of that celebration?
It's the feeling that you want. It's the feeling, sometimes you get to an end of the game and you've won and you're like, well, I'm glad we got that. It's almost like you can breathe a sigh of relief. Then other games you're like, right, pull me off the ceiling type thing.
See,
like,
I
you're
think
absolutely
I was
buzzing.
more the sigh of relief guy. You're much better at celebrating.
But
than I was.
but the thing is, like, I'm massive on over celebrating because I've just got far too much energy. But
you see, when you celebrate like that and you're total illusion, does your mind immediately go to, right, I have to perform at that level next week, or we have to back this up?
Yeah.
Or are you in the moment just thinking this is amazing?
a bit of both.
See, I was always worried about the next game
that's
challenge.
something. Yeah, that's something that I've always tried to. I've almost like bounced back and forward between the two, whereas now I understand what they both mean. I always talk about after a game, win or lose, the feeling that you have after a game.
Yeah.
And when you lose, you don't want this feeling.
Yeah.
When you win, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And let's chase that again.
Yeah.
But then you've got to rein it back in and go, right, how do we get this?
Yeah.
How have we won this game? How do we, take our opportunities and make sure that we back it up or better at the week after? That's the thing now that excites me. And then when you do it again, the feeling's even more special.
Well, 100 caps at the weekend, Scotland versus Ireland. How or what do you need to do to try and experience that feeling? The number one team in the world, incredible form they're in. What do you need to get right this weekend then?
The best thing we've done over the last kind of year or so, Mossy, is concentrating on ourselves.
Yeah.
And that there was, for years on end, we'd sit and we'd watch X, Y, and Z about what opposition are going to bring us. But now there's a real confidence and belief and trust within the squad that we can go out there and do a job. It's going to be bloody tough.
Do you have to perform better than you've ever performed before?
You have 100%.
Never beat the number one team in the world, I don't think.
No. And that's the thing. We've got an opportunity and a chance to do it, and that's what excites me to go out there and train every day. Because when you feel like I do, and it's bloody freezing on that top pitch.
It was cold today.
She was cold today. But that's you're thinking, right, let's go out there, let's make sure we squeeze everything out of this session that we can, and then rest up, recover, and get ready to go again. Because if you get all the preparation right, that's half the battle. It's just a case of going out there and executing it under more challenging circumstances. But that's when you get an opportunity to show your individual ability and us as a team. So that's the exciting part. This is the nitty gritty. Get on with it. Make sure we're prepped. But when you go to 80 minutes of rugby, you bring your little party piece and have a bit of fun and get our country behind us. There's nothing better.
Well, they'll be behind you on Saturday. I've no doubt at all. Behind the team, absolutely, but behind you personally as well. With the career you've had, the career you're having and going to go on to have, as I say, brilliant to have so much time. I know you've got to jump to a meeting, but listen, good luck. Thanks for your time. Have an amazing performance on Sunday. Celebrate it, and everybody was celebrating with you as well. So listen, Hoggy, brilliant. Could have spoken forever, but yeah, go on, enjoy that meeting.
Cheers,
and enjoy
Mossy.
Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Pal.